It really is a powerful way to put content out, to have that freedom to talk about whatever you want, and then to have the secondary step of where you decide how to actually post-produce. So for this next topic, I want to talk about my topic list, which is here on the screen. Font size is probably small, so you're probably not seeing it too well. This is another thing I was talking about with my buddy, and I think there's a couple things I wanted to share about it. So actually, this is part of my content routine, is that I take notes throughout the day. I have a Google Keep, I do tweets, and in the morning, I sort of review those notes. I review tweets that were interesting to me. I put everything into this Airtable. It's very simple. It's a very simple little Airtable, but I've added a couple little nuggets to it, which I think have been useful for a number of things. And so this segment thing here is where I'm starting to organize each of the things I talk about into these different segments: e-commerce, content related, fitness, personal, developers, work related stuff for developers, all these things. And I want to get this list a little smaller because there's too many topics, and I know that not everything I talk about is relevant to like my main audience on Twitter. So I'm trying to be more mindful of like putting stuff out that's relevant to people in certain channels and things like that. So that's one thing. The other cool insight that I had as I'm creating content and stuff, and I'm kind of creating a whole lot with these live streams, is that one of the ways that I was thinking about it was like, okay, I do a stream once a day, I have 7 or 8 topics, and then I decide which of those topics I'm going to put into post-production, which means I'm paying my content team to produce video clips, written content, post to social media. So I only want to put the stuff there that I'm going to get some ROI from, so I'm going to put the Magento related stuff is going to go on my Commerce Hero channel and things like that, and content related stuff is going to go on the Content Accelerator channel and things like that. And so one of the things I was thinking was like, well, if I don't put it into post-production on that day, then it's kind of like the content is sort of lost. Like it kind of doesn't go anywhere, right? Like if I do a segment on this stream and it doesn't go into post-production, basically virtually very small number of people are going to actually see it. But then what I realized is there's a lot of power, I think, in the aggregation of all these topics. So for example, no code is one of the topics I find myself talking about more frequently because it's something I'm interested in. I did a topic in this stream on no code. I'm not really putting any of my no code stuff into post-production because again, I'm not really getting ROI on it. It doesn't really fit into my businesses. And so it's kind of going nowhere, right? But then what I realized was that having this reference, having this sort of catalog of all these topics is something that I can come back to. Let's say a year from now, I do 100 little mini topics on no code, right? And let's say that none of them ever go into post-production. So for all intents and purposes, they get hardly any visibility whatsoever. And it's kind of this random topic. It's again, not really related to my businesses. It's like, why are you even talking about that? It's true about a lot of these segments. It's true about no code. It's true about happiness, right? Like I'm doing more stuff on the topic of happiness. It's like, what is the purpose of that? But what I realized is, let's say a year from now, I have 100 topics on no code. I can always go back retroactively. That's what's really powerful about having this list and having the YouTube streams. Having the YouTube streams without this list would make it almost impractical to go back through it retroactively, because it's like, what are you going to watch 100 hours of stuff? But having this index means that a year from now I can create a view within Airtable. For example, this is my view for Magento stuff. It pulls in all my Magento segments. I can pull up a view on, let's say on no code, and I can have 100 topics. And let's say a year from now, I go, maybe I should create a business in the no code space, or maybe I should sell this content, right? I've got 100 clips. I've got 5 hours of content that, is individually is like not very useful, but like in aggregate, it's like, there's probably some value there. Like maybe you could sell that for $10, right? Or whatever. Just the idea that, like, I really love that I've talked about this before, these streams, the freedom to talk about whatever is of interest without worrying about is there ROI associated to it. Then having a secondary step where I can take the things that do have ROI, post-produce them, and then now this other secondary step where a year from now, I can aggregate things on a topic, which maybe seemed like a random topic. And then that can be a body of work now, like happiness or fatherhood, right? I've done a couple clips on being a dad. A year from now, if I have 100 clips, I could turn that into a book, right? I could hand that off to a ghostwriter, be like, here is my brain dump on the topic of fatherhood, right? Turn that into a book, turn that into an epic blog post, turn that into whatever, a video course. Like there's so many different ways to do that. So that was just an interesting idea. And I think this would be something cool for people to do in general. It really is a powerful way to put content out, to have that freedom to talk about whatever you want, and then to have the secondary step of where you decide how to actually post produce.